Hey guys, thanks for joining us. I'm Steve,
I'm Zach.
I'm Colby.
and this week we're going to cover the mysterious case of Rey Rivera. You may have heard the story on Netflix. They recently did the Unsolved Mysteries stories, and the first one they did was Mystery on a Rooftop. And this covers Rey's mysterious death, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper, and we think we're going to crack the case. So, if we're going to crack the case, we might as well crack open a drink.
Oh yeah. Rey Omar Rivera was a 32-year-old man who had moved to Baltimore from Los Angeles. He was a writer and had been unsuccessfully shopping his script around Hollywood. Rey's friend, Porter Stansberry, offered Rey a job writing a column for a newsletter at Stansberry and Associates Investment Research. Rey and his new wife Allison needed the money, so he accepted. Rey moved to Baltimore first and stayed at the Peabody Court Hotel in Baltimore, located about 1/2 of a mile from the famous Belvedere Hotel. Allison moved there about 3 months later, and they eventually moved in with her aunt in a nearby Ellicott City. Allison traveled a lot for business, and Rey would often hit the clubs with Porter when she was gone. Porter liked the expensive places. In December of 2004, the couple bought a $280,000 house in Baltimore, and Rey found a supplemental job coaching the men's water polo team at Johns Hopkins University. 6'5", 250-pound Rey had competed in the sport at a high school level and college. His friendship with Porter had actually started as a teammate in high school. At about the time of the new house and the job, Rey began writing a new screenplay to be called Midnight Polo. So Rey didn't like his job at Stansberry and Associates. He didn't feel like he was acknowledged enough about finances to give tips, and felt tremendous guilt whenever a stock he recommended didn't do well. He stopped working for the company and used Allison's credit card to buy $15,000 worth of video equipment in a Create caliber video production. He works for Agora Publishing, the parent company of Stansberry and Associates, as well as other local companies as a contractor. His relationship with Porter Stansberry does not seem to be harmed by him leaving the company. Around the beginning of May, the screenplay was completed, and the house was up for sale. Rey was hot to return to California and try to sell the screenplay. That was his dream. But Rey was beginning to act a little out of character. About a week before his disappearance, Rey accompanied Allison to a running track. She ran and he read a book on the bleachers. A man appeared and Rey freaked out, according to Allison. Whoever the man was, he took off quickly. Remember, Rey was a very large man. A few days later, the couple woke up to the screaming pitch of their burglar alarm. Rey had a bat and looked fearful, a look Allison had never seen on her husband's face. The next night, the alarm went off again. Later, the Baltimore cops examined the alarm and suggested that squirrels had set it off. On May 16th, 2006, the day after the last alarm outburst, Allison leaves on a business trip. Rey stays at home. Also that day, Rey talked to a member of the Freemasons about joining a lodge. The man reported nothing unusual about Rey's behavior. He was reading a book called The Builders, which is about the Masons. Also, on the last day, he purchased a copy of the book Freemasons for Dummies at a bookstore. Around 4 p.m., he calls a video technician company to inquire about renting some equipment that weekend. He was familiar with the company, and the person he spoke with said he was friendly, but maybe pressed for time. An associate of Allison's was staying at the house. She says the phone rang around 6:30 p.m. Rey said, "Oh shit," and rushed out of the house. He came back in, perhaps having forgotten something, and then left in Allison's car. No one knows exactly what happens next. Allison returned home, and members of the family rushed to join the search. Stansberry and Associates offered a reward for information. The company's employees were active in the search for Rey. Allison's parents found the car in the parking lot that was near Stansberry and Associates' office. It was also quite close to the historic Belvedere Hotel, which was now home to upper-scale condos and a popular bar that Rey was aware of. And upon reaching the upper level, looked on the roof of the attached annex of the Belvedere. They saw a hole and looked like a flip-flop. Sure enough, Rey's badly damaged and lifeless body was found inside the building. His undamaged phone was found on the rooftop along with flip-flops, one of which had a broken strap. It was assumed that Rey had made his way to the top of the Belvedere and jumped. Unfortunately, the rooftop camera was not functioning at the time. No one remembered seeing Rey in the building, and he was not spotted by any of the working cameras. Rey's family was very skeptical. Everyone said that Rey was happy and full of life, and they noted he was scared of heights. He wouldn't take his life in such a way. Allison claims that someone at the coroner's office told her that the damage to his legs didn't match the type of fall he said he would have had. The coroner's office eventually ruled the cause of death to be undetermined. According to the Netflix special, Porter cut off contact with Allison and the family. The show also claimed that he issued a gag order throughout his company and did not allow employees to talk with the police about the case. Porter had been fined $1.5 million by the SEC recently and may not have wanted the publicity. The family found a note behind Ray's computer. The font was small, but readable. It was very strange. It began with the words, "Brothers and sisters, right now, around the world, volcanoes are erupting. What an awesome sight. Whom virtue unites, death will not separate." The second sentence is said to be a Masonic phrase. The note makes little sense and seems to assume the reader will understand the odd sentences. He lists several people that he wants the council to make 5 years younger, and lists several movies, books, and music that he found significant. Many of the films have conspiracy theory storylines and involve secret societies. Some, like the Matrix movies, have the world within a world storyline. Ray's family suggests it may be a stream of consciousness outline of a new story. Others have suggested it is written in some sort of unknown code. Allison gave the letter to the police, who forwarded it to the FBI. The Netflix special doesn't mention it, but the FBI analysis said it shown signs of mental decline or break. Ray's family has had to move on without the answers they want. They suspect foul play. Maybe Red found out something about his old company that did not want him to pass on. Maybe the Masons were after him. Did Ray really just snap and end his life, or did something else cause the man's untimely death?
The Netflix special mentioned that Allison gave the note to the police and they forwarded it to the FBI.
What it did not mention is that the FBI's behavioral analysis unit concluded that the writer of the letter suffered from persecutory delusional disorder, and that his letter could have been written by someone experiencing an untreated manic episode. They determined that someone with such an episode may have symptoms that may go virtually undetected by family and friends.
Yep, the episode indicated that their rooftop was almost impossible to get to, but that's far from the truth. There have been reports on the internet that I have not been able to verify completely, but that Allison had been there with Ray before to watch a sunset. Like I said, though, I first read that in a couple places, so I thought that was fact. But then, now I'm kind of suspicious about that. But there was a book written about the case before this special came out by an author by the name of Makita Brotman, called "An Unexplained Death: The True Story of a Body at the Belvedere," and she says that it was very easy to get up there. She actually lived in the building, and it was very easy to get up there. Doors were kept unlocked. The elevators were not locked. The bartenders at the restaurant often would go up there for the smoke breaks, and there was actually like a chair up there. It was it was just a getaway spot. So it's not nearly as difficult to get to as they made it seem on that special. And to add to that, 3 Stansbury employees actually found the hole on top of the little annex building to the Belvedere. They were on a nearby rooftop of a parking garage, and they looked down. They saw the flip flop in the hole, and they're the ones who called the cops. But that is kind of weird that the employees found the hole.
Yep.
Right? Because you have a theory about that.
Yeah, that he was literally just like messing around with his friends, and then he just fell off.
Yeah, or maybe his behavior was just kind of weird. But I do have the feeling he'd been there before, and maybe with his pals, maybe they had an idea that maybe he'd been around there somewhere.
How would he have fallen off if he had to get a running start?
Mm-hmm. Never know.
Right, he would need a good running start, but maybe, he'd been acting. We'll get to it, but he'd been acting kind of strangely leading up to this. So, like the guy that, some guy walked near his wife on the track, and he freaked out on that guy, and his alarm went off, and he thought he had a bat, and he was like swinging out. He was definitely paranoid, whether it was for something real or something in his imagination. So if he's up there, who knows what his behavior would have been.
Allison had said that someone in the medical examiner office said that his shins were broken in a way that was inconsistent with a fall.
Yeah.
This is not true. Wait, how do you spell that? The autopsy report says that he had 1 broken leg, and the injuries were consistent with the fall from a great height. Speaking of the report, much was made of the fact that the death was was listed as undetermined. 20% of deaths in Baltimore in 2006 were listed as undetermined. And it has to be like there has to be almost exact information leading to it.
Right. They knew he fell from a height. They assumed it was from the building. But they weren't up on the cameras weren't working, so nobody knows if he fell off the building, he got shoved off the building, he jumped off the building. So how could they can't really completely determine the cause.
They can't tell if it's like one way or another because it has to be almost exact information for them to it's determined. So they shouldn't be making this big deal out of that if it has to be exact.
Right, because Netflix made it. It's this whole nefarious thing. Is why were his shins broken in a different way and why did they do call it? Why didn't they call it a suicide if it wasn't a suicide? And why did they say it was undetermined? But these are the rules they go by.
It has to be exact.
Allison and Porter have not had a very friendly relationship because she thinks that he should have covered Ray's debts after he died, which that's just the moral thing to do. But
I think her argument was he was doing work not for Stansbury and Associates, but they all work for like that company called Agora. I mean, that's like the parent company, and he was doing like a project for Agora, but it didn't get completely done because he was splattered. So she felt like he should have paid for that anyway, or the company should have paid for that anyway, and apparently they didn't. And you'd think they would have, but it's a business, right? He didn't perform the service, and they didn't pay him. So I think that's one of the reasons that they, she was not too happy with him. And maybe she never liked him in the first place. Who knows? I mean, not every wife likes all of her husband's friends, and we'll get into it a little bit. But Porter's a bit of a character.
Speaking of Porter, the villain of the Netflix show,
right? He's got a bad reputation. He got fined $1.5 million by the SEC. So you can't really take everything. He seems a little shifty, but he likes living the good life. He makes a lot of money. But he doesn't seem like for instance, he wasn't even in town. He was on the other side of the country when this happened, or the whole company was off on some company retreat. So he wasn't around. The company wasn't around. I don't know. Apparently, I guess if he hired a hitman, then that would be the perfect time to do it, right? Like, hey, we weren't here, so that's possible, right, guys?
Yep.
If Porter really was a guy, but it doesn't really seem like it. I mean, he hadn't worked for Porter. Ray had not worked for Porter for what, like 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they were still, by all reports, still pretty friendly, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, what do you think? Do you think, from everything we saw and we read, that he was going to hire, there's got to be, as is always the case, there's always got to be something missing that we don't know about, right?
That one thing, that one detail that would put it all together,
But I don't see it. I don't see it at all.
I don't see him hiring a hitman after he gave a $1,000 and then upped it to $5,000 reward.
Right. I mean, it wasn't exactly his money; it was the company money. But that's what these rich businessmen do sometimes, right?
Like Colby said, it is very odd that Porter put up a $1,000 reward and then upped it to $5,000 through the company's money for information about Ray when he was missing.
Right. The Stansbury team, right, led by Porter, was actively searching for Ray in their off hours, right? Where were they looking, Zach? Hospitals?
Yeah, they were looking at hospitals, and they contacted the post office workers and garbage men.
Yeah, because they're the guys on the ground. That makes sense. And what you said, or somebody said before, they're the ones that actually found the hole. I mean, it doesn't sound like they were staying out of it and not helping, right? They were part of the investigation.
They were a big part of finding him.
Right. Now, maybe it's all part of their evil plan. I don't know, but it seems like a stupid one. If it was me, I'd stay the hell out of it, right? Yeah. I wouldn't want to. If I had something to do with it, I would not be the one that found the body. Right. That is what I would do.
Also, the Netflix special said that there was a gag order.
Right.
There wasn't. The closest thing to that was employees were asked to have anyone requesting a meeting call a contact person instead of the actual person. But that was just probably because, like you said, they were having some troubles, the company in general.
Right, they didn't want just anybody talking to the police, or especially the press, and having any other questions pop up, about all their shenanigans. So it would make sense, but there was no gag order.
And then after the body was found, again the Netflix special tried to make Porter seem bad. He did meet with the lead detective on June 23rd, 2006. He answered all the questions, and he did have a witness present. The police never actually contacted him again for a second visit. So even though the Netflix special said that he never did anything like that and just tried to keep his nose and, tried to stay out of the case, he didn't. He tried to help as much as he could, but he was undergoing investigation for his company anyway. I'm sure he had a lot on his plate, and if they ruled it a suicide, then I guess he didn't really want to think about it.
Right, that's what he said, because he was blindsided, he says, because he has come out publicly since the Netflix special, and he says he's really surprised because he assumed the case was solved. His good friend had committed suicide. He was certainly not happy about it. He probably didn't want to talk about it. So there's some other theories. The Masons were after him because he had
just researched them.
Yeah, he'd researched them on the internet, and he had bought a couple books on them, and apparently he'd actually talked to somebody about joining a lodge or whatever. Now I'm going to tell you, if this is the criteria for having the Masons, pull a hit on somebody, then I'm locking my doors, because I've done research on the Masons before. A lot of people have. They're a curious organization. I don't see any reason why the Masons would be after him to kill him. I don't really see a connection.
Dude, that whole investigation kind of thing.
But that note is definitely written towards the Masons. I mean, it definitely he has phrases about the Masons. It just seems like he thought he had cracked the code with the Masons, and he knew what they were up to, and he thought there was like some weird thing. And part of it was lists of all these movies, like The Game, which had groups like the Masons, and National Treasure, which good movie, but it's got the Masons in it too. It's got the list of all his friends that he wants to be made 5 years younger. Now, if you guys can make anybody 5 years younger, can you make sure I'm on the list? It would be great to be in my 20s again. Oh. And also, just like you were saying about the murder, do you think it's likely that they're going to just throw a 250-pound, 6'5" guy off a building? You think that would be an easy way to murder somebody?
Just kill him and then put him in a hole.
Right. I mean, there's a theory that he was dropped out of a helicopter, but I don't think there's a list of any record of any helicopters flying above there. And I just think somebody might have noticed a helicopter and then a thud. I don't know.
I mean, you'd think.
So I guess we'll like kind of wrap this one up with kind of theories.
And a cat.
All right, who thinks? Does anybody think it was the Masons, or no? That seems like a movie thing. I don't think it was Porter. I think Porter has his own problems, but I don't think he's murdering people that used to work for him because they found out something. I mean, that's the theory. They don't know what he found out, but he just found out something.
He found out that they had nothing to do with his murder,
Right.
so he ran away from him.
In advance. It doesn't really make sense. It sounds like his behavior was really, I mean, what do you think? His behavior is kind of weird leading up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had like that weird note.
The weird note. There was like another story
too.
He had another friend who lived in a high-rise apartment, and he asked to have a key to the guy's apartment. He wanted to go check out his apartment, and the guy, I forget the guy's name, he said that Ray had been acting very, very strangely. Not just one very. He used two veries, which, to me, I just think Ray was going through an episode. I don't necessarily think he intended to kill himself. I do think he jumped off the building. I think he thought in his state.
Matrix.
Yeah, here's the Matrix or The Game, but something. There was a world within a world, and he had figured the whole thing out, and that's kind of like, even at the beginning of the note, what to say, like, it was a game well played, right? Like he had figured out the game. So that's what I think. I feel bad for the family because Ray seemed like a really great guy, and his wife seems very nice. He has a brother that was in the special, seems like a great brother. But, if you watch Unsolved Mysteries, it's a great show. We're not, and we don't want Netflix mad at us like the FBI's mad at us. So we love Netflix, but they definitely gave it, I think,
a bias.
Yeah, they want a villain.
They wanted it to be compelling.
Yeah,
I think one of the very weird things about that, though, is that the notebook was behind a picture.
Yeah, the note, he taped it behind the computer.
Behind the computer.
But he made it like tiny font. So you kind of have to read it with a magnifying glass almost, which is really bizarre too. Not the most bizarre thing he did that week. So I think we've cracked the case. Not everybody's going to agree with us on this one, I think, but I think we've cracked the case. I think it was just a mental breakdown, and she was out of town. If she'd been around, maybe he wouldn't have acted quite as weird. But maybe if somebody noticed like the behavior and put things together, maybe they could have gotten him some help. But you can't always get some people help in time.
I think one of the most key pieces of evidence that this was like he just had an episode and he jumped off the building,
right,
is that the analysis that said like
the FBI
that said he was going through like
it was. They said it wasn't a suicide note, but they definitely thought he was going through an event.
Yep.
Which we all agree.
Yep.
All right. This week we're going to cover the mysterious case of Rey Rivera, and you may have seen this on Netflix on their Unsolved Mystery special. The first one was the story of the mystery on. I screwed it up. On the rooftop. Take two. Hey guys, thanks. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. I'm Steve. One of these weeks he's gonna know his line. All right. We're gonna try. No, none of that. All right, are you ready? Now, when I give my name, you give your name, then Colby gives his name. All right. All right. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. This week. Hold on.
Stop barking.
What are you barking at?
Okay. We're not getting very far.